Hello, and welcome to Bead Basics. I'm Leslie Musette of the Hands-on Art Workshop. Right now, there are so many advancements in beading supplies, with wonderful man-made materials and an impressive array of tools. But the beading techniques themselves are thousands of years old. They've been passed down artisan to artisan, sometimes improved upon and sometimes given a special twist. But through it all, a bead still has a hole, and a clasp hasn't changed that much since it was invented 3,000 years ago. The world of beading is huge, and since we want to start creating things and having fun as soon as possible, I've boiled it down to some tried and true essentials. Even so, there's a lot to explore. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the different stringing materials, a little bit about the beads themselves, findings, tools that you'll need, how to use a beading board, keep track of costs, organizational tips, and then on to stringing practice using stretch and memory wire. We'll learn how to use a crimper for both leather and beading wire. Then we'll try our hand at knotting. And finally, we'll explore a whole other branch of bead weaving techniques. Well, there's a lot to do, so let's get going. Let's look at the tools you'll need. In my toolkit for basic stringing, I have a measuring tape. Just like you use in sewing, when you want to see how big a wrist is or how long you want a necklace, you're going to need to do some measuring. A small, sharp pair of scissors, always useful for cutting off the ends of strings and thread lengths. Also, a beading board. This is where we'll actually design our necklaces and bracelets. Plus, it keeps everything safe until we can get back to finish it. We'll also use it to do some calculations on costs. Here are two beading boards. They do the same thing, one is just larger. What they have in common are these grooves. You notice that they're marked with measurements. There's a 0 in the center, and then the measurements come up from either side. This measurement is only true for this outermost groove. I can put beads in this beading board and then slide them around until I get a pleasing pattern, and they won't roll around and get lost on the floor. These pockets are a place to put the beads while you're using them. Now, why this board is so great is, let's say I'm working on the kitchen table and I need to stop. Well, I can simply pick up the whole beading board and leave everything just as I have it till I can get back to finish it. I also have a cat who loves to steal my beads, so if the doorbell rings, I can pick up my beading board and keep it out of harm's way. Later, we'll be coming back to the beading board and its many uses. Now, these are baggies, and you can find them at the stationery store, craft store, bead stores, or even the one at the grocery stores will do. I like the kind that has this white block that you can write on with an ordinary pen. Also in the must-have pile is Hold On for bead stringing. Now, this stuff can save you a lot of aggravation. It has lots of uses, but here's a quick preview. Let's say you want to use this stringy material. Well, if you just started stringing onto it, it's going to just fall off the end. And in the past, people would put Scotch tape that would leave a sticky residue, or they'd put a knot on the end that you'd have to untie, or they'd put paper clips on that would just simply fall off. So thankfully, we now have Hold On for bead stringing. I pick up a piece of Hold On, make it into a shape of a worm, wrap your stringing material once or twice, and then pinch the ends of the worm together. Now you can easily just string and nothing falls off the end of your necklace. Here's another added benefit. Let's say I've already finished stringing my whole necklace. I can take another piece of Hold On, rub it into the worm, wrap my material once or twice, and squeeze the ends of the worm together. Since Hold On sticks to itself, I can actually push the two ends together and try my necklace on to make sure it's what I really want before I crimp and put my final finishes on. To remove it, simply grab one piece and pull it off. It's reusable, it won't dry out, non-toxic, and leaves no sticky residue. It works on all beading materials, even silk. Needle nose pliers are also called chain nose pliers. They come to a fine point. There always seems to be a need for needle nose pliers, so you'll want to have a pair handy. This is GS Hypo Cement. It's a great glue for delicate jobs. Now, this isn't an instant glue, so you don't have to rush things. It's called Hypo Cement because the applicator is very thin like a hypodermic needle, where it gives you a lot of control to put the glue exactly where you want it to go. Now the whole trick is to get this thin needle down the applicator when you want to close it. Now I always keep my hypo cement in its box because it's made of a thin metal casing, and if it gets pierced it'll easily leak out. Now that takes care of all your general use tools. Now depending on your choice of stringing materials, you have to add more specific tools. To use memory wire, which is a strong steel coil, you'll need a pair of wire cutters. You can get a pair from the hardware store or special memory wire cutters. Now you have cutters that you'll normally find in a bead store and they'll say they're for wires, but they're not for hard steel wires, so if you use them, it'll ruin them. Also for memory wire, I'm going to use my needle nose pliers. That'll be to secure the ends, or the hypo cement, which will glue a little bead end onto the wire. For soft flex, which is a beading wire, we're going to use a crimping technique, and that requires a special patented crimping tool. There are two holes on this tool, one that looks like a pair of lips and one that's more oval or egg-shaped. Also for soft flex and beading wire, you're going to want wire cutters. These come to a fine point, especially made to get between beads and cut off any extras. A pair of scissors won't do the job. For silk, we'll need a pair of knotting tweezers. Now there are a lot of tweezers on the market, so specifically ask for knotting tweezers. They should come to a fine point. We'll be stretching our silk before we use it. Now you can get creative on this next item, but I use a piece of PVC piping, the kind that you can get at a plumbing store or a hardware store. This was a little scrap that I probably paid 30 cents for. Also in the stretching technique, I'm going to use masking tape. Now you can use a painter's tape or any tape that won't leave a sticky residue on your silk. Scotch tape simply isn't a good choice. For knotting, again, we'll be using our hypo cement. For leather, we'll be using needle nose pliers and GS hypo cement to crimp the ends onto the leather cord. It does not use that crimping tool. Now the last tool is optional and it's for your beads. And when you need it, you're glad to have it around. It's called a bead reamer. This is a handy tool for all beads except glass beads, and this is how it works. Let's say you're stringing along and suddenly one of your beads just won't go on to your beading material. So you take one of the wands, I put it into the cotlet, and I tighten it down. Now always keep this wand wet when you use it to keep the diamond dust from wearing out. Pick up the bead that won't go on, insert the tip, and then just worry it back and forth a couple of times. Now try your stringing material. If it doesn't work, a little bit more water, and a couple more twists. With a couple of tries, you'll get it just right. Be careful with tourmalines and other soft stones. They break easily. Now, even though it's great to have all these tools at once, they are an investment that adds up. And don't forget, you still have to buy stringing materials and the beads themselves. So after watching this lesson, you might want to focus on one skill at a time and then just add those tools so it's not so overwhelming financially. Also, as